all startups are rushed. It's just part of the process where you never have enough time, you never have enough resources, and certain things have to be hurried up. What if we had more time? Should we revise? Should we be more precise on and be able to go forward with a much clearer presentation and alignment from board all the way through to our other stakeholders, so it's clear for everyone what we're doing. Biking and e-biking are two things that seem to be coming back faster. One, you don't have to worry about social distancing the same way you do if you're on a bus, on a train. Two, depending on the city, you don't have a total lockdown, so you can get out and about. Part of this is the relationship we've already established with them in terms of direct communication. You don't wait till you're thirsty to dig the well.
Hi everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Startup Empathy video series. In this episode, you get to meet Liam, who is the CEO of Voltitude, an e-mobility luxury brand that is working on products that are targeted towards high-end customers. In this episode, you get to hear how they are handling the crisis and what actions they're taking to survive it. I hope you get some insights and you learn something and can apply it to your own current challenges. I hope you enjoy it and have a great day. Liam, thank you so much for joining this conversation about your feelings towards the crisis today and telling us a little bit more about Voltitude. And we'll talk all about different types of different things that we are interested in hearing directly from the entrepreneurs that hopefully help and inspire other people to go through this crisis, but also to see that there's a lot of positivity around us. Now, the first most important questions that everybody is interested in hearing is, where are you working from?
I'm working from home, obviously. So for us, it's we have a guest room, and we just have to shut the door so that the little kids end up not interfering with the workflow. But it's the same for all of us here, where we all are working from our respective homes. And Zoom is our friend.
Zoom is our friend. Well, I'm here at the pop-up studio in Zurich of Vision. I'm not sure if you heard of Vision, but it's a startup based here in Zurich. And what they do is they do AI-powered camera operating systems. And I'm very excited to try this studio and to see how it reflects in the quality of our videos. So to get started, maybe, Liam, I'm very excited because, again, you're the CEO of Voltitude, and I'm very excited to hear. I've been following what Voltitude has been doing for the last couple of years, and I'm very excited maybe just to give a short introduction and some context to what we're going to discuss after. Tell my audience what Voltitude is doing.
So Voltitude it's a luxury e-mobility company, and really what that means is we're at the convergence of two worlds, where we have a board and a group of individuals who come from the luxury watchmaking industry, who also have a passion and an interest for e-mobility. And what we've been working on is creating an e-bike and then an ecosystem for e-mobility, for personal e-mobility, which resonates with customers who are consumers of luxury goods. So the ideology and the construction that comes from luxury watchmaking and high-end leathers and whatnot. So basically what we've been doing for the last few years, actually last 4 years, is working on our prototype and working on our business model, and then seeing how we can bring this to market. So essentially, we're a pre-Series A company. We've gone through several seed rounds, and we were actually starting funding when COVID had an impact in the European and US markets.
I mean, I was part of I joined one of the investor updates or investor meetings that you had, and it was really just probably one of my last physical in real life meetings that we had. Very, very interesting. And let's talk a little bit about what happened right after. So basically, how has Corona or this whole crisis now affected your efforts as a CEO for Voltitude?
I think the first thing to say is that no one was really sure what the impact would be. And so we went with a plan that we have to go forward no matter what. We were in the midst of doing a funding round, and that was significantly challenged because we could not have the in-person meetings, as well as the fact that since we are a startup that does not have a product already on the market, we don't have traction. So when we're looking to investors, it's difficult to demonstrate that our success if we don't have any yet. and most of the investors we're looking at are looking to mitigate their losses or mitigate their current investments. So basically, what ended up happening for us is that we paused our funding round and worked with our existing investors to give us a runway to give us the opportunity to actually go successfully through the round that we were intending on. At the same time, what we wanted to do was, all startups are rushed. It's just part of the process where you never have enough time, you never have enough resources, and certain things have to be hurried up. What this actually allowed us to do is, when we realized that we're going to have the delay or there was going to be an impact on this round, is we said, well, one, we need to talk with our investors and see how we can go forward, and two, we need to see what we've been doing in this time in a hurried manner, because it has to get done, as opposed to looking through our business model, looking through our distribution, looking through basically everything we're doing and saying, what if we had more time? Should we revise? Should we be more precise on, and be able to go forward with a much clearer presentation and alignment from board all the way through to our other stakeholders, so it's clear for everyone what we're doing. So we used the time, once we realized we would have it, to basically make sure that, one, it was very clear that what we were doing was going to allow us to be as successful as possible, as opposed to focusing on the core competencies, focusing on the core goals, having a more holistic picture of what we're doing, how we're going to present it, and what the outcomes we want to be.
Now, when you look at this, mobility was probably one of the most impacted industries. From aviation to public transportation, there's so many different aspects to mobility, but it was definitely one of the things that changed many people's behavior. How have these behaviors impacted your strategy in terms of the way you feel like moving forward?
So, when we sort of drill down from, mobility as a whole, from airlines to car, and we start going down into personal mobility. So, personally owned cars, and then we start going into e-mobility and personal e-mobility, where we're talking about basically, e-bikes, e-scooters, things for personal use. The impacts are different than it is on a whole sector like the travel sector and airline in particular. For us, in terms of the impact, one, we don't have a product on the market, and so fortunately for us, it didn't have an impact on our sales. In terms of what we see, and when I look through what's going on in most of the major cities in Europe, or some of the major cities in Europe as well as in the US, biking and e-biking are two things that seem to be coming back faster. One, you don't have to worry about social distancing the same way you do if you're on a bus, on a train. Two, depending on the city, you don't have a total lockdown, so you can get out and about. And for some essential workers, it's preferred that they go by bike, by e-bike, by foot. So for our business, e-bike and personal e-mobility sector, I don't see this as I think the industry will come out stronger, because I think people will be concerned about being in vehicles and public transport with other people around. And so I see really an upside on this.
Very cool. It's interesting to see, because again, everybody of all the entrepreneurs I've been talking to, they all perceive the crisis in a very different way. And you are in a luxury space, which, let's say, in absolute numbers, rich people are more affected than other people. and that's why it's absolutely interesting to see how their behavior changes. If you feel are they going to purchase in the near future electric bikes that are the high end, even though we might feel that it's a high-end product, but do you think that a product like yours is impacted by people who now say okay, look, we have to focus on other things, or they're still going to purchase products like yours?
With Voltitude, we're really in a white space in the market where we don't, I personally feel we don't have any direct competition, because it's a luxury product which happens to be an e-bike. And there are products that are approaching the price points that we're working in, but no one is really making this their core business. So if I was to look at the rest of the e-bike business in particular, I would say there would be an impact based on the fact that we're focusing on luxury side of this as opposed to the utility. Of course, it has all the underlying utility that you would want out of a product like this, but we're really focusing on the customer who's buying something because it's aspirational, because of how it's constructed, because of the materials, because of the finish, because of the people who are around this that are developing this. I don't see that being an impact. And when I look at what's going on already in Asia in terms of luxury consumption, we'll see how it bounces back. But in the first 2 to 4 weeks now, since the changes have happened in China in particular, luxury consumption is coming. It's a question of how far back will it come, and also what the impact will be for the European and the U.S. markets. And so it's very difficult to say. You know, we're a very small company looking for a very small piece of the pie, and a very high-priced product. So I don't necessarily see this having a direct impact on our business at this point. If we were to be priced in a lower price point, I would see it being a struggle, particularly as a new entrant.
I mean, you said like currently you have your current investors who helped you with this financing for the next couple of months. What is kind of like their advice that you get right now from the investors that like said like, okay, look, we want you to succeed and we even support with more money and financial resources, but like what is it that they give you along the way? That like what are the key elements?
One of the things that we did is we looked to the small team we had and said, what are we missing? And how can we get that support either from the board and the investors, or how can we get the board and the investors to help us bring that support in? And that was one thing where we know, you know, my background is not from luxury goods. I work in e-mobility. I worked in the sporting goods with various bike and sporting goods brands. But prior to that, the operational team doesn't have 20, 30, 40 years of experience in launching luxury products. So one of the first things we made sure that we did is we brought in some talent who could help us to make sure that we could check off all the boxes to make sure when we're communicating, what we're delivering, how we're presenting our business plan, and make sure we're not missing anything that is essential for this business, where, you know, we can have all of the technical aspects wrong, but the messaging or the finishing of the business plan doesn't really meet the expectations of the investors that we're going to. So that was one of the biggest things we had, because from a product side, we felt we were relatively comfortable. It was more along the lines of making sure that we have the DNA and the experience of veterans to help drive this on an operational level so that we can go to the next round.
Now, when you look at your team, I mean, like your team is still very small, but
yes.
Like maybe you can elaborate a little bit, like what your team went through in the last couple of weeks, and by adjusting to this new situation.
Going into this, we had a very short runway because we were basically looking for a funding round. So there was a lot of uncertainty already going into this, because yes, we were having traction with our fundraising at this point, but having traction but not having signed LOIs or not having money in the bank is different than having all of those things and knowing what the next steps are. So already for us, we were in I wouldn't say precarious position, but we were uncertain as to how we were going to go forward. So there was a bit of stress. I mean, we're a startup. We've taken certain risks. We enjoy the ride, but with the ride comes turbulence. We were not sure how we were going to get alignment from our board and some key stakeholders to make sure that we could go forward. So there wasn't infighting. Fortunately, there was just really trying to figure out how we could present ourselves in the best way possible to show that we are aligned and we believe in this still, and we're willing to, I don't want to say make sacrifices, but we're willing to continue to take the risk in a even more uncertain time to see this through. And basically what we're looking at now is a year runway to work through all of the issues that we wanted to get more precision on.
I mean, like maybe you can elaborate a little bit on these discussions that you had with the investors, because I think that will help a lot of other a lot of other entrepreneurs to understand like how to approach these discussions, especially when you come from a managing position towards like an investor or like a board member, where there's sometimes the principal agent issues. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit of like what were going on in this discussion, and like how were you able to like convince them, or like what were the discussion points, and how are you able to interact with them in a way that like made them feel comfortable to give more money, but like also made sure that like you preserve the cash for as long as possible?
We've worked with the investors that we have for the last 2 to 4 to 5+ years. I mean, we have some legacy investors who've been with us for a long time. Some investors who the shortest amount of time they've been with us is for 2 years, and part of this is the relationship we've already established with them in terms of direct communication. You don't wait till till you're thirsty to dig the well. You have to be very open from day one when you're onboarding new investors in terms of what the situation is with the company. The transparency has to be there. And so going into this period, there was already an understanding of the investors knew where the company was. The investors knew what the funding needs would be in terms of the short and the long term. And they also were aware of the momentum that we had in terms of the fundraising, as well as the fact that they all saw, because we tried to keep them as involved as possible. They saw the fact that we had a fairly well-aligned operational team. Everyone was working towards a common goal here. There were no factions who were saying we go this way or we go that way. It's like, all right, we go forward and we go forward together. So to work with the investors, they didn't have to worry about the politics or the infighting. One, because we are a small team. Two, because we know that we have to work together, because this is a very challenging project. This is not typical for our investors or for us as a team. So everyone who's invested in this already was looking at this as a high-risk project. And what happened with COVID-19, it didn't change the risk profile specifically of the project. It just changed the risk profile for a certain period of time because of the segment we're going after with luxury.
So let's talk a little bit about your plans for the next couple of weeks. And, what is it that like you have had to adjust now in your strategy, but like how are you moving forward? Are you more the type of person that says like, yeah, we are now in a scenario where the new normal is the normal, or no, we are going to go back to like what there was?
I don't know if we will know what the new normal. I don't think that normal will be what it was before, particularly if we're talking 2 to 4 years out. Humans are very stubborn and have their habits. I think we will see some of those change in the short term. It's a question of what we will fall back on. But for most businesses, I think that normal will change. In terms of what that means for us, obviously we've had to look at our cash P&L, where we can save things to extend our runway. Also in terms of when we're looking at our business plan for going to market, where were we looking to be? Geographically, where were we looking to be, which is less attractive now based off of the changes that are going on, and where it makes more sense. I think that was a big part of the discussions that we've had, is what do we need to do in terms of looking for our targets, in terms of our sales forecast, and also on the same side, in terms of our supply chain, what do we need to do in terms of managing risk, in terms of having better A and B supplier options in case we run into a situation like this in the future. We're talking about small numbers, but at the same time, we need to make sure we have a very strong alternative supply chain if there is a risk in the future. And we have a global supply chain at this point, so it's really important. And then also when we talk about our how we communicate what our product is, I mean, do we need to pivot a little bit on that in terms of are we eco luxury as opposed to something else? So we've been looking at our business plan, saying what have we done? As I said before, what have we done that we should reevaluate and perhaps communicate in a slightly different light based off of the changes in the world.
Very interesting. I mean, like, what are your things that you would say, like, yeah, that is something that would be really helpful for you now in terms of support that we could give a startup? So,
we're based in Switzerland, and the ecosystem in Switzerland is fairly strong. I wouldn't say that in terms of we've got a lot of support from the government for the ecosystem as a whole. Obviously, startups are not the first thing that the government supports, but here there's such a big ecosystem. You have, EPFL and you have ETH, which really drive those aren't the only two, but those are two that really drive a lot of the startups between life sciences and fintech. And what the government's done here has been really supportive.
What is the number one learning that you had from this crisis?
You can never react fast enough in terms of planning, not in terms of acting.
Wow, okay, good. I would have like tens of questions just to ask about this. But we'll keep this for another time. What is the number one feeling you will remember from this crisis?
Uncertainty. I mean, uncertainty on professional and personal levels.
What do you think will change forever?
I hope people's respect for epidemiologists.
Now, us as entrepreneurs, we always see like business opportunities left and right, but we do have to focus on our own like venture. We can't like lose focus. Like, what is the one business opportunity that you see right now that you wish you could pursue, but you have to stay focused?
I see that the e-mobility and the mobility market for individual users in mobility as a service will blow up. If I see what Berlin, what Milan, what Paris and other cities are doing in terms of trying to get more people to and from home, from work, and seeing the positive impact people have had from biking as opposed to using cars in those cities in terms of the environment, in terms of the health of the individuals, I see that that's going to continue to push forward at a faster rate than it was before the crisis.
What is your one tip to work from home?
Block your time, lock your door.
Very good. That sounds like kids running inside your room and stuff like that. So very interesting. Well, Liam, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I wish you a lot of success. And I hope we all get out healthy on the other side and stronger. But again, as I said, a lot of success. And I'm definitely going to continue watching you from the sideline. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Cédric. It was a pleasure. I wish you all the best as well. And I look forward to seeing who else comes on board for Startup Empathy. I think this is really, really generous of you to pursue this.
Thank you so much.